Welcome to Dark Deeds and Conspiracy, the podcast where we delve into chilling true crime stories and mysterious conspiracies that have left us questioning everything. Thank you for joining us today as we explore another dark chapter in history.
Okay, so today we're diving into a case that's been, I guess haunting a lot of people for like 2 decades now.
Yeah, definitely a long time.
Yeah, the disappearance of Maura Murray.
Absolutely.
And it all starts back in 2004, February 9th to be exact, with a seemingly minor car crash up in Haverhill, New Hampshire, and then poof,
Yeah.
Maura's gone 21 years old.
It's like she vanished into thin air.
It really is, and it's a case that's just packed with unanswered questions, and there's just this feeling that something's not right.
Totally, and that's why it's so captivating, right? Like there's this real sense of mystery that just lingers.
Right, and so we have a collection of like reports and articles here, and we're going to kind of dive into those together and really try to pinpoint, what are the crucial elements of this puzzle?
Yeah, what are the things that really matter? Because there's so much information out there, it's easy to get lost in the weeds.
Yeah, so first things first, who was Maura Murray? I mean, from what we've gathered, she was a nursing student at UMass Amherst, right?
That's right, UMass Amherst. Seems like she was a bright young woman, born in '82 in Brockton, Massachusetts. Close-knit family, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, I was reading she was like intelligent, really determined, and athletic even.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, she even spent some time at West Point before transferring to UMass.
Wow, West Point.
Yeah, so, definitely driven and ambitious.
Yeah, definitely. So it seems like, on the surface, everything was going well for her promising future and all of that. But we often see what's on the surface isn't always the full story, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, people are complex. There's always more than meets the eye.
Exactly. And in the months leading up to February 2004, there were definitely signs that, things maybe weren't as perfect as they seemed. There was that car crash on campus, late 2003. She was cited for driving under the influence.
Right, the DUI?
Yeah, and, plus the usual academic pressures. She had a long-distance relationship, and nursing school is no joke, so, it sounds like she was dealing with a lot.
Yeah, and, for a lot of college students, that's kind of par for the course, right? You're juggling all these things. But, when you look at what happened later, it makes you wonder if it was all just a bit too much.
Yeah, and this DUI in particular, I mean, that seems pretty out of character for her, wouldn't you say?
From everything we've read, yeah, very much so. People who knew her described her as responsible, level-headed. So this incident really stands out like a red flag almost.
It's like, okay, something's not quite right here.
Exactly.
And it doesn't end there. There were some other, I guess you could say, unusual behaviors that happened before her disappearance. There was that incident with the stolen credit card in late 2003.
Right. I remember reading about that.
Again, something that just doesn't seem like her.
No, not at all. It's like, who was she trying to be? What was going on in her head?
Right. And then just a few days before she disappeared on February 5th, she had this really emotional phone call at her security job, and they found her like crying uncontrollably after talking to her sister, Kathleen.
Oh, yeah. That was about Kathleen's struggles with alcoholism, right?
Yeah, and I can only imagine how difficult that must have been for Maura.
I mean, addiction is tough on everyone involved, families, friends. It's heartbreaking.
Totally. So, I mean, you have to wonder about the impact of that phone call on her, in those final days leading up to her disappearance.
It definitely makes you think, was it a breaking point? Did it push her over the edge? We can't know for sure, but it's a piece of the puzzle that we can't ignore.
Yeah, it's definitely a significant piece. And then there's this whole other layer of really puzzling actions in the days right before she vanished.
Okay, what do you have?
She's researching places to stay in the White Mountains.
The White Mountains.
Interesting.
Yeah, emailing her professors about a death in the family, which wasn't even true.
So she's being deliberately deceptive.
It seems that way, right? And withdrawing $280 from her bank account, which pretty much emptied it.
Okay, so that's a significant amount of cash. What was she planning? Right, like was she just trying to get away for a while? Was she in some kind of trouble that she just couldn't talk about? It's really hard to say.
Yeah, and the condo inquiry in Bartlett, like what was that all about?
I know, right? It's like one strange thing after another.
These are all crucial pieces of the puzzle, but the picture they create is still so blurry.
It really is, and they really fuel a lot of the theories that we see, right? Like her researching the White Mountains, and specifically that condo inquiry in Bartlett, that definitely suggests like some kind of planned travel.
Right. Like she had a destination in mind.
Yeah, and then the email to her professors, that's just straight up misleading, right?
Yeah, no question about it. She was trying to cover her tracks, create a story.
And then that significant cash withdrawal, that indicates that maybe she wasn't planning on using her, typical financial resources.
Oh, she was going off a grid in a way.
Yeah, and so taken together, these actions definitely imply that she had some kind of plan. But the specifics of that plan and her motivations, it's still a huge unknown.
Yeah, was she looking for solitude? Was she running from something? Or was it something else entirely?
Exactly. And so then we come to February 9th, the day she disappeared. Around 3:30 p.m., she's seen at a liquor store in Hadley, Massachusetts, buying about $40 worth of alcohol, vodka, mixers, things like that.
Okay, so alcohol is now a factor.
Yeah, and reports say she seemed to be in a hurry, and then she headed north towards New Hampshire, and her father, Fred, has even stated his belief that she might have had a specific location in New Hampshire in mind, possibly connected to some, personal struggles, feelings of depression that she was going through.
Okay, so we have a potential link between her emotional state and her destination.
Yeah, and then the fact that she bought alcohol, that just adds another layer, right? Was this for this potential getaway? Or was it something else entirely?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. Was it for the trip to cope with her emotions? Or was it something more impulsive, linked to her state of mind?
Right, and it just adds to the overall sense that maybe she was feeling pretty vulnerable and perhaps not thinking clearly.
Especially if she was keeping her destination a secret. It makes you wonder who she was trying to avoid, or maybe even who she was hoping to meet.
Exactly. And then around 7:30 p.m., her car's found on Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire.
Okay, so this is where things get really interesting.
It had gone into a snowbank, but the damage was pretty minor. Nothing too serious.
So not a major accident.
No, not at all. And this is where it gets really strange. A passerby, a school bus driver actually, stopped and offered to help, but Maura declined, saying she'd already called AAA.
AAA, huh?
Yeah, but here's the thing. AAA has no record of that call.
Okay, so that's a lie, a deliberate misdirection.
It seems that way, and what's really significant is that she was seen outside a car, appearing uninjured. So that really begs the question, if she was okay after this minor accident, what happened next?
There's the million-dollar question, right? It's like she vanished into thin air. Why refuse help? Why lie about AAA? What was she hiding?
I know, it's so strange. And then later that night, they find the car still running, headlights on.
Still running? That's odd.
Yeah, inside they find her purse, her cell phone, credit cards, all there.
So it doesn't seem like she planned to be gone for long or go far.
Right, but here's the catch. The car keys were missing.
Okay, so the keys are gone. That changes things.
It does, right. It suggests she didn't just calmly walk away from the scene.
Yeah, there's something more to it. It definitely adds a layer of urgency and mystery to the situation.
Totally. And initially at the crash site, there weren't any obvious signs of foul play.
Right, but that doesn't mean it wasn't a factor later on.
Right, exactly. And those missing keys, that really sets off alarm bells. And it leads to them expanding the search efforts beyond just the immediate area around the car.
Yeah, because now you're thinking, okay, if she didn't walk away on her own, how did she leave? Was someone else involved?
And that's where the theories start coming in, right?
Yeah, because you've got this puzzle with some missing pieces, and people are going to try to fill in the blanks.
Exactly. And one of the primary theories, especially early on, was that this was some kind of breakdown, maybe even a suicide.
Right, that she just wandered off into the wilderness, overwhelmed by everything.
And her emotional state leading up to her disappearance, the fact that her personal belongings were left behind, it kind of lends itself to this idea.
I can see that. It fits a certain narrative. But was there any actual evidence to support it?
That's the thing, right? Like, despite her stuff being there, suggesting maybe she didn't plan to be gone long, there was no trace of her actually going into the wilderness.
Right, no footprints, no clothing, no signs of a struggle, nothing.
And so that just brings us to another theory, right? Foul play.
The possibility that something more sinister happened.
Exactly, like maybe she was abducted or even murdered.
Yeah, and you mentioned the car was still running, no clear indication of where she went, and the possibility of someone else being there, maybe even the motorist who stopped. Yeah, it's a dark thought, but it's a real possibility, especially given how little information we have.
Right, and then there's also the fact that search dogs couldn't pick up a scent trail beyond a very limited area around the car.
That's a big one, right? It suggests she might have left in another vehicle.
And remember, the bus driver's account of what happened that night, it's been inconsistent over the years.
Yeah, that's definitely raised some eyebrows. Did he remember everything correctly? Was there more to the encounter than he initially let on?
Exactly. And as time goes on with no sign of Maura, it's no wonder that the thought of foul play becomes even more prominent.
Yeah, especially for her family. That not knowing must be agonizing.
Absolutely. And another theory that's been explored is the idea of a planned disappearance.
Okay, so she staged the whole thing.
Yeah, like maybe she crashed the car on purpose to start a new life somewhere else.
But she left her phone and credit cards behind. That doesn't make much sense for someone starting over, does it?
Right, but some people point to the fact that there were packed boxes in her dorm room at the time.
Packed boxes. So maybe she was planning something, but not necessarily a new life.
It's hard to say, right? Like, was she just about to move? Were those boxes just leftovers from a previous move?
Yeah, and Julie, Maura's sister, has talked about this too, that maybe Maura had just moved into a new dorm room and hadn't unpacked everything yet. That makes sense, doesn't it?
It does, and I mean, she had textbooks and personal items in the car, so a totally planned disappearance seems less likely, right? I mean, you'd think she'd need that stuff for a new life.
True, but then again, maybe leaving those things behind was part of the plan, a way to throw people off.
Right. Like misdirection.
Yeah, exactly, like a magician's trick. But without more information, it's all just speculation.
It is, and then there's the possibility that someone else was involved, maybe a secret relationship or some kind of connection that nobody knew about.
Oh, a secret lover or a dangerous acquaintance.
Yeah.
That always adds another layer of intrigue.
Yeah, and it's hard to rule out, especially when someone vanishes without a trace.
It's the unknown unknowns,
Yeah.
right? The things we don't even know to look for.
Exactly, and the fact that there was zero communication with her friends and family after she disappeared, that just leaves the door open for all sorts of possibilities.
Yeah. Was there a side to her life that no one knew about? Did she have secrets?
And let's not forget about the alcohol she bought right before the crash.
Right, that's a big piece of the puzzle.
Could intoxication have played a role? Maybe she made some irrational decisions after the accident, wandered off further than anyone initially thought.
I mean, alcohol can definitely impair judgment, lead to confusion, disorientation. Maybe that explains why she refused help, why she lied about calling AAA.
Yeah, and if she was disoriented and wandered off, that could explain why they never found her.
It's possible.
Mm.
But still, it doesn't fully explain why she completely vanished. No trace, no contact with anyone. Something doesn't add up.
I know, it's so strange. And throughout all of this, her father, Fred Murray, he's been such a constant presence in this case.
Yeah, he's been relentless in his search for answers.
Absolutely. And from the very beginning, he suspected foul play, and he was incredibly frustrated with what he saw as a lack of urgency, a lack of resources in those initial search efforts.
He felt those first few hours were mishandled, crucial time lost.
Yeah, and given how much time has passed and still no answers, it makes you wonder, how has the family's perspective evolved?
I mean, they've lived with this pain, this uncertainty for so long. Their views must have shifted and changed over time.
It's understandable, right? And officially, no suspects have ever been named, but there have been some individuals who have drawn scrutiny, become persons of interest.
Oh yeah, the internet loves a good mystery. There are always theories and speculation flying around.
Totally. So our sources mentioned a local resident who lived near the crash site. He was looked into, his property was even searched, but nothing conclusive ever came of it.
Right, so he remains a figure of suspicion for some, but without concrete evidence, it's all just conjecture.
Exactly. And then there's that persistent theory that she left the scene with someone else in a vehicle.
Right, based on the bus driver's account and that reported sighting of a red truck.
But again, so much uncertainty, right? Who was driving the truck? Did Maura even interact with them?
And the bus driver's memory, as we said, it's been shaky. It's hard to know what to believe.
And it makes it incredibly difficult for investigators to determine what actually happened.
It's like trying to piece together a puzzle where half the pieces are missing and the ones you have don't quite fit.
And then, you go down this rabbit hole of unsubstantiated theories involving, like, serial killers, Israel Keys, and even possible connections to the Connecticut River Valley killings.
Yeah, those theories are out there, but it's important to stick to the facts. We can't let speculation run wild.
Right. And there's no concrete evidence linking Maura to those cases or those individuals, thankfully.
It's natural for people to try and connect the dots, but we have to be careful not to create narratives where none exist.
Absolutely. And, over the years, the searches for Maura have been extensive.
Yeah, there's been countless efforts to find her.
And her father, Fred, his dedication to finding his daughter, it's truly remarkable. He's worked with private investigators, never given up hope.
It's a testament to the power of a parent's love. He's never stopped fighting for her.
And the case officially remains open, which gives some glimmer of hope that maybe someday, somehow, there will be answers.
It's that hope that keeps people going, that drives them to keep searching, to keep asking questions.
But it's incredible how after all this time, so many fundamental questions remain unanswered.
Like pieces of a puzzle scattered on the floor.
Exactly, and the lack of footprints, a scent trail for search dogs, beyond a very short distance from the car. It's baffling.
It really is. It's like she just disappeared into thin air, which is almost impossible in this day and age.
Right. And then there are these reports of a second car at the scene.
Unconfirmed, but persistent.
Yeah. And could there have been missed opportunities, mistakes made in those initial hours of the investigation? We may never know.
It's easy to second guess in hindsight, but those early decisions can have a huge impact on the trajectory of a case.
And then the fact that there's been no activity on any of her accounts, her cell phone, nothing since she vanished, it's like she just ceased to exist.
It's the digital silence that's so eerie. In a world where we leave a trail of data everywhere we go, she left no trace.
And then there are all the alleged sightings over the years.
Oh yeah, people claiming to have seen her in Vermont, New Hampshire, even Canada.
It's amazing how this case has captured the public's imagination.
It's a mystery that just won't let go.
But sadly, most of these sightings have led nowhere. Dead ends, false hope.
It's heartbreaking, especially for her family. Imagine getting your hopes up only to have them dashed again and again.
And there have been discoveries of skeletal remains, alleged confessions, but none of them have panned out.
It's a cruel reminder that even with all the attention, all the searching, sometimes the answers remain elusive.
So here we are, 20 years later, and the disappearance of Maura Murray is still this haunting, unsolved mystery.
A puzzle with missing pieces. A story without an ending.
And her family, especially her sister Julie and her brothers, they've come to believe that foul play was involved.
After all this time, it's hard to imagine any other explanation.
Right. And Julie, through her podcast, she's been really vocal about this and sharing a lot of her new details about the case.
She's doing everything she can to keep Maura's story alive, hoping that someone out there might have that one piece of information that could crack this case wide open.
And so as we wrap up this deep dive into Maura Murray's disappearance, we've talked about her preparations, her seemingly contradictory actions in those final days, the circumstances of the crash, the lack of a clear departure from the scene.
It's a case that keeps you thinking, keeps you wondering.
It really does. And so here's a final thought for you, the listener. What single piece of information, if it were to suddenly surface, do you think would be the most crucial in finally understanding what truly happened to Maura Murray on that cold February night?
What's the missing piece of this puzzle? What would it take to finally bring Maura home?
It's a question that continues to haunt us all.
Thanks for listening to Dark Deeds and Conspiracy Podcast, and be sure to subscribe for more episodes on true crime mysteries just like this one. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and always keep searching for the truth.